Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 8, Surrender. We open this episode with Vadic in charge of the Titan, and she's lighting up one of her little cigars. She's dancing on the bridge, while Shaw and the rest of the bridge crew just stand there and let her do it.
They were going down the line of captured Starfleet personnel on the bridge, and like this one lady was crying, and I thought that the Penguin was doing like the Macarena or something. I do not understand. This is a silly, silly scene. And I do not understand why people think the Penguin or any of this story is any good. I wish I had better words to describe just how silly this episode started.
Yeah. I don't know if Shaw turned over control of the ship to her, or she, had some sort of magic technology that they were able to get control. Maybe Lore gave her control. I don't know.
Well, they mentioned later in the episode, it was the ship's locked down except for the bridge, or maybe it's locked down only on the bridge. I don't know. There was some piece of dialogue that kind of said it's locked down except for this. And I couldn't figure out what they were talking about. I could go back and try to figure... I don't care. I don't care.
For story reasons, the only console where you could enter Picard's number to get control of the ship back was on the bridge. But I'll get to that in a second. Vadic has control of the ship somehow. She addresses the crew, many of whom are seen cowering in the hallway like little kids. And she wants Jack to come to the bridge, or she's going to execute one crew member every 10 minutes. While all of this mess is going on, Jack figures out that he can hijack people's bodies. He hijacks a member of the Titan's crew out in the hallway. He is walking around in this person's body and walks right up to one of Vadic's, changelings. I guess we do see them change at some point. They kind of look like Pizza the Hut, but whatever. He gets this guy killed. I guess we're supposed to be concerned for Jack because he feels, the death, or I don't even know what. He seems physically affected by it. So, of course, Beverly and Picard are concerned for Jack, back locked in wherever the hell they are. There's no concern for the fact that he just hijacked somebody else and got them killed. Whatever. Okie dokie then. As it turns out, like I said, the only place to enter Picard's override code is a console on the bridge. Jack hijacks somebody on the bridge and is trying to enter the code, but of course he gets caught. That fails. Picard, why does he even have working access codes? Isn't he retired? I thought we've been told over and over and over again that he has no authority because he's retired.
Well, they keep changing. He has no authority. He has authority. He has no authority. I don't care. Of course, why they keep saying, people on the internet, that Captain Shaw is a great character. This episode showed just how not great of a character he is. I don't know. Maybe people just now cowardness, snarkiness, and stupidity are now valued on the internet. That's what people want for heroes now, are those values. Heroes meaning they're redefining the word. The opposite of a hero is what Captain Shaw is. But apparently, I've seen multiple people online say Captain Shaw is the breakthrough character of this series. And they want their own spin-off series with the Titan and Shaw. And I don't know what to say to those people. Captain Shaw is one of the worst characters ever made in Star Trek.
When Jack doesn't show up within 10 minutes, Vadic executes Lieutenant Hammerhead, with Shaw, Seven, and everybody else just standing there and letting her terrorize and kill crew members. That was a spectacular moment in Starfleet history. Shaw dead names Seven, and she corrects him. With everything else that's going on, that was what was important. They aren't making plans to take back control of their ship. No, Seven is telling Shaw that her name is Seven of Nine, and not Annika Hansen. She doesn't want to be called by her dead name. What is with these writers?
How many bird people are on this ship?
I don't know.
Because I realized the Titan had a bit of a skeleton crew when Ro left them a few episodes ago. But I just think that they could still jump these bird people. It doesn't look like they're very formidable fighters. So cowering in the hallway, their arms and legs aren't bound or anything. There's just these what look like children cowering in the corner while there's one or two birdmen walking the halls. It's like, why don't you jump those birdmen?
Since Jack failed at entering Picard's code and taking back control of the ship that way, they need a positronic brain in order to do it. Which means they need Data to do it because I guess he and Picard aren't as similar as they've tried to make them out to be. In order to have Data take back the ship, they need Data to be in control of the body. So Geordi removes the partition between Data and Lore. Lore tries to take over by taking all of Data's stuff, which equates to Data's memories. Once Lore has taken all of Data's memories, it appears Lore has won. But then Data points out that Lore took the things that were Data's, and in doing so, he became Data, and now they are one as Data.
This wasn't abstract. This was supposed to be an artistic interpretation of the battle going on inside Data Lore's brain. You were in like this brightly lit, ethereal world. I mentioned to Mollie, this is going to sound crude, but I'm just going to call it out. I now understand why a lot of the ship is poorly lit, because when Data Lore was in this ethereal world that was well lit, Brent Spiner looks really, really, really old when he is lit well. It was hard not to notice that. When he was standing in profile with Lore, which obviously was himself, they were shooting him mostly from the chest up. When they occasionally did a body shot, Brent Spiner has a gut, and not just a little gut. He's got a pretty hefty gut. And between that and the wrinkles and the well-litness of this ethereal place, I think I now understand why these ships are so darkly lit. It's so that people can't see just how old these actors are. And I'm not trying to age shame anybody. I think you could be an older actor and do a fantastic job. But it became apparent in this scene when they were showing minutes of Brent Spiner just how old he looked. And he didn't look like that on the Titan when the ship was darkly lit. It wasn't just wrinkles. I mean, it was hard to see this was the same person. I didn't realize Brent Spiner looked that old because I guess they kept it hidden for a while. I was surprised at how much of a change Brent Spiner had when he was in that brightly lit, artsy, ethereal world when he was fighting Lore. And then, yeah, the member berries, here's this, like Lore was taking away all of these memories, at least at first in the scene. And I was joking with Mollie. I was like, look, Lore is Terry Metalis in Secret Hideout, and Data would bring up, hey, this is important to me, this is Trek lore. And then Lore was like, give me that, that's mine now. And then he like threw it over his shoulder like Luke Skywalker lightsaber-wise. And I was like, yeah, that's Terry Metalis in Secret Hideout. And then the completely predictable, because they had this graphic on the screen of like Data's brain. Data was blue and Lore was red. And so you saw these dots in his head on the schematic. And when Lore was winning, all the blue dots were going away. And then at the end, when you thought Lore won, his entire schematic of his brain was red. And then somehow when Data came back, it just turned all blue. It was ridiculous. There are people that make fun of some of the older television shows and how predictable they are. This was as tropey predictable as you could ever do on any television show from the 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s. So I don't want to hear from people about how fresh and unpredictable this Picard series is. This was cringy bad, the way the red and blue dots in Lore versus Data, and the fake out loss before he came back and said, by taking all those things, you've now become me. I laughed. This was an even numbered episode, and there were pieces of this episode I laughed at, just like all the other even numbered episodes. This was one of them. I honestly laughed out loud, as I said, when Lore was taking all those things from Data that were things we recognized from TNG. I was like, that's Secret Hideout and Terry Metalis. Give me that. Throw it over your shoulder. Done. Next.
Yeah, that was really bad. And there's more. I want to talk about that at the end in relation to Picard's body, but I want to continue with this story right now, so I'll talk about that later. Meanwhile, Jack has gone to the bridge to turn himself over to Vadic. He threatens to kill himself with some device he has in his hand and demands that Vadic releases the bridge crew. She does, and everyone leaves except for 7 of 9. Vadic is talking about the red door and clearly knows what Jack is, but we don't find out because Data takes control of the ship. The front of the bridge opens up and Vadic is shot out into space. She freezes and gets shattered. I think this is probably my favorite scene from this whole season. When she said, "Fucking solid." And then she's like sucked out into space. I mean, I like that for all the wrong reasons. I think Amanda Plummer, given the script she had to work with, I think she actually elevated the material. However, this level of cheese does not belong in Star Trek. She was an over-the-top baddie. She was written that way. Her performance was better than this show deserved. It's a shame that such talent is wasted like that. I think I might have to cut out that little clip of her saying, "Fucking solid," right before she shot out into space and just keep it. It was funny. I mean, I enjoyed that. However, I enjoyed it, as I said, for the wrong reasons, because it didn't
belong in Star Trek.
No, it didn't belong in Star Trek. Also, it made me really think of The Princess Bride when Inigo Montoya was on the losing end with the six-fingered man. And it really looked like Inigo was going to die. And the six-fingered man was taunting him about being that Spanish brat that he taught a lesson to all those years ago. And he'd been seeking revenge this whole time only to fail then. How deliciously sad that was. Possibly the worst thing he'd ever heard. How that actually spurred Inigo to fight harder and win. Vadic, she had just as much anger built up inside of her. She was motivated by revenge, just like Inigo was. But at the end there, she was just a comical villain. And she was written that way. And it's like these people didn't understand what someone with that kind of hatred and anger inside of her would be feeling at that moment. She wouldn't just be like, "Oh, fucking solids," and just die.
It was appropriate for this series, though.
It was, but it was another wasted opportunity, because you even go back to, like, the Wrath of Khan. That guy just didn't say, "Oh, fucking Starfleet," and just die.
This is the snarky generation we live with now. This is it. The line that she gave was funny if this was somebody making a parody of Star Trek. Because you would expect, like, one of the founders, like if you were doing a Deep Space Nine parody, you would have one of the founders going, "Effing solids," and that might be funny depending on how you write that.
Yeah.
But in this case, the difference between the Wrath of Khan and this, yes, Ricardo Montalban was over the top chewing up scenery, but he never didn't take the material seriously, and the show never didn't take the material seriously. In this thing, it feels like they're not taking the material seriously. Since we're on the bridge scene here, I want to mention, so when Jack was on the bridge, he had this device in his hand that he was using to kind of threaten the Penguin. And it kind of looked like it was a grenade, and I think we were all led to believe it was a grenade. And it turned out that it was a force field generator. When the bridge's atmosphere was evacuated, Seven and him were safe inside this force field. I gave credit in the first episode of this season, saying that I think they had a proper view screen on the Titan. Maybe somebody who looks at blueprints can help me here. But they had something called like an evacuation port or an evacuation something. And what it was, the view screen, this is how it looked to me anyway. Again, somebody correct me if I looked at this wrong. The view screen splits in half. It opens up left to right like a turbo lift door. And behind that is a window. So what happened when they evacuated the atmosphere? The view screen opened up like a turbolift door, which revealed a window behind the view screen, which was like J.J. Abrams and his windows. And then the atmosphere, including the Penguin, when she got sucked out, went out of this window. When they wanted to close everything up, you saw the view screen close like a turbolift door closing. And then that's how the bridge was able to repressurize. The credit I gave the Titan on episode 1, which I did not like episode 1, but I at least gave in our video, I said, at least they have proper view screens now. I don't think that's true at all. I think they still have windows. They just have their windows and then somehow they put a view screen on top of that. Maybe I'm misinterpreting what this artistic presentation was. If somebody understands better or even at all how this worked from a technology point of view, please share in the comments, because when that happened to me, not only did I roll my eyes, but I said, this is effing J.J. Abrams stuff. It's just, they really did like paint a facade on J.J. Abrams stuff when I saw that view screen open. But maybe I'm misinterpreting that. Maybe somebody's got some blueprints that they can say to me how that's actually supposed to work. Maybe it's always worked like that. I just don't remember a window behind the view screens before, but maybe I'm wrong.
Whatever. That's how I look at this now. Whatever. They take the ship back. You see them going through the hallways. There are changelings lying there on the floor, and I assume that they're dead. However, I'm not 100% certain about that. And they shoot them and they just disintegrate. And I said, well, I hope that changeling was dead. They're not just going through and exterminating people who should be prisoners.
Well, the concept, yeah. Don't you take POWs? I guess not. You just execute the injured.
War crimes. Anyway, Riker, Troi, Worf, and Raffi had all been over on the Shrike. I guess Worf and Raffi boarded while Vadic was over on the Titan. We didn't get to see that. Riker and Troi were being held as prisoners on the Shrike.
In some sort of bird cage. The Penguin, of course. The Penguin had him in a bird cage with force fields around the bird. It looked like a bird cage to me.
Yeah. They weren't acting like Starfleet officers. They appeared to be helpless old people in a cell until Worf comes and saves them.
By killing the guard from behind, Worf, that's his move now. He doesn't face his enemy, he just stabs him from behind.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess after Thad died, Deanna had gone into Will's head and was trying to help him carry the burden of the loss without his consent. And she says she forgot that you can't skip to the end of healing. They make up. They talk about how much they both hate the planet they live on, including the birds that wake them up every morning like screaming babies. I just really was turned off by this whole scene with Will and Deanna.
How did that even work? Again, somebody correct me in the comments. I thought Deanna was half Betazoid. So her abilities were essentially empathic. That's all she was with her half-bloodedness. How was she going into Will Riker's head and numbing the pain? I didn't think she had that ability.
She didn't used to. I think in one of the movies, and I don't remember which one right now, I think that she somehow extended her powers or something like that, or her abilities, whatever. At this point, I'm just watching this stuff like, oh, okay.
If somebody has information on that, because I do not like the Next Generation movies. I don't watch them very often. I've watched Generations and First Contact a few times. The rest of them was like a one and done type crap because I didn't like them. If somebody has any information on that, let me know. Because during the TNG series, she just was empathic. When she was dealing with telepaths or other Betazoids, she could do more. But in general, I thought against other species, all she could do
she was an empath.
So how she was numbing Will's memories or whatever, I don't know how she was doing that. Please somebody explain that to me. I'm open to being wrong, but if they did introduce that in a movie, that's just more reasons for me not to like the movies, the TNG movies. But I know a lot of people disagree with me on that concept, so last week it was me pointing out the problems with Deep Space Nine, and this week says it might be me pointing out the problems with the TNG movies. We'll see what somebody says here.
On the Shrike, I don't know how many people Vadic left behind, but it was very easy for Worf to kill one guard, and then he, Raffi, Deanna, and Will are able to download all of this information from the Shrike. Picard's body is lying there in its coffin, I guess. I don't even know. I mean, I guess whatever kind of stasis bed, or I don't even know what the hell that was. Oh my god. So Worf tells Deanna not to worry, it is not him. It is only his former shell. And then Raffi says it's his biological body before he went positronic. And
they're admitting that that thing walking around is a robot. They're admitting that. No, that thing in that coffin, that's Picard's body. That's Picard. The thing running around now is a duplicate, if you're lucky to call him that, an imperfect copy of Jean-Luc Picard. And to treat that body with such irreverence like that, no, it's like an old shoe or something. Don't worry about Picard's body. No big deal. They didn't feel a need to take the body with them for some sort of burial. I mean, heck, in Generations, didn't Picard at least throw a bunch of boulders on top of Captain Kirk as a burial?
Yeah.
But guess Picard doesn't even get that.
Well, I believe Kirk's body is also on Daystrom Station now, so...
Yeah, this series I don't count as canon. This series can't be canon. It depends how you define canon. Is the IP holder saying this is part of their continuity? Yes. But in continuity, as far as making sense of the rest of the lore, this cannot fit in with any of the continuity. There are so many breaking things that they do in this series. All 3 seasons. This season is no real difference than seasons 1 or 2. People who are saying, yes, it is, it's an improvement. It's only an improvement because you like seeing the old actors. That's my personal opinion, but that's the only difference, and you like hearing the older music and the member berries. But there is stuff as ridiculous as eating car batteries in this season. So I do not understand how anybody can say with a straight face, this season it's not perfect, but it's better. Yeah, it definitely isn't perfect, but it's not better either. It's just garbage. This is the same crap.
It was appalling to me how they behaved like Picard's body was just nothing. In fact, it seemed to be a liability because Vadic had used the body to collect samples of Picard's aromatic syndrome for some reason, which I'm sure is in the research that Raffi downloaded. But the point I'm trying to make is that they act like the writers. And I'm comparing this to the Data lore situation. And I don't disagree that largely we are the sum of our experiences. However, we aren't so much that you can just discount our physical bodies and just act like they're nothing. They act like Picard isn't dead because his memories were transferred into this artificial thing.
It's a robot. It overloads medical devices with electricity from season 2. This is a robot body he's in. They've made it clear he's in a robot body. This is an approximation of what Jean-Luc Picard used to be.
And I just have to feel that Deanna should be very disturbed to be around that thing, because it's allegedly Picard, but there shouldn't be any emotion she's picking up from the thing. It's not biological. If I'm recalling correctly, she wasn't able to pick stuff up from Data.
Again, I might be wrong here. I think when Data was starting to get some emotions with an emotion chip, that she said something like, Data, I'm sensing you. But yeah, through most of that time, she couldn't sense anything. I would argue it made no sense for her to pick up even that emotion chip was just a bunch of algorithms to simulate emotion.
Yes.
Emotion comes from biological things, organic things, hormones, adrenaline. That's where emotions come from. If you don't have a body, then you're not going to have emotions. Well, I can understand Worf because they established in TNG with the body is just a shell and the entity has moved on. But because Picard's not a Klingon, they should have brought his body back for a proper burial. Yes, a Klingon wouldn't do that. As far as if Picard was a Klingon, Worf wouldn't bother taking the body back because the body is just a shell. But human beings don't work that way. Picard himself used to be a very cultured individual who I would have thought would have put a lot of importance in such concepts as a funeral. But they didn't seem to care. I don't know. Maybe we missed the scene and they actually did take the body on the shuttle, but I don't remember seeing that in this episode.
No, I don't either. Finally, we get the fan service scene everybody's been waiting for. We've got Riker, Troi, Worf, Geordi, Data, Picard, Crusher, all sitting around a table talking about how great it is to be back together again.
And who was missing in that room?
Well, Shaw wasn't there.
The actual captain of the ship. That great character people love.
Well, that's because, again, this was the fan service moment. So Rafi wasn't there either.
But weren't they making decisions on their next step? Why wouldn't Captain Shaw be in that? It's his ship.
Because this was all about Jack. Jack is the key to everything. He's the chosen one.
Oh, he's Harry Potter. I gotcha. Gotcha. Okay, I'm with you now.
Or Rey, or any number of chosen one characters. Yeah.
Star Trek, to me, has never been about chosen people. That's why the J.J. Abrams movies never worked for me. That 2009, saying Kirk was this man of destiny. Except that's not how I remember Kirk. Kirk got where he was because he studied like crazy. That's why Kirk became such a good leader and a competent captain that could beat Spock at chess, is he was an extremely hard worker, not just some person of destiny. And so the fact that this is going to be a thing now, I don't care, whatever. I'm going down a path that I'm sure is going to spark problems again like it did last week. But I can think of a series that introduced Destiny and the Chosen One, and that was Deep Space Nine and Cisco, the Cisco. That's when the concept of a Chosen One was brought into things. And if this turns out to be, some people have speculated that this is a Pa-Wraith inhabiting Jack. If that turns into that, between that and the Changelings, is this really a Next Generation follow-up? Or is this a Deep Space Nine follow-up if this turns out to be a Pa-Wraith? And if it is a Deep Space Nine follow-up, why couldn't they have brought in Deep Space Nine characters?
They have Worf.
He's kind of in that dual role thing, because yes, he was on Deep Space Nine. But as far as I know, there are plenty of those actors that are still alive for Deep Space Nine. If Terry Matalas wanted to make a Deep Space Nine follow-up, why didn't he just bring in Deep Space Nine actors? Why bring the Next Generation people in at all? Why not bring in Deep Space Nine people? I mean, the series is still called Picard, so you still have to have Robot Picard in there, I guess. But why not bring in a bunch of Deep Space Nine people if that's the story you want to tell? What really is Next Generation about this story? I don't think Changelings appeared at all in the Next Generation. So what part of this arc is centered around the Next Generation? We've heard channels say, this is a very Next Generation type follow-up. What part of it's Next Generation? If this turns out to be a Pa-Wraith, then we've got Changelings and that. So this would be a Deep Space Nine follow-up. I hope that's not the answer that what Jack is. Because if it is, it's going to be an insult to people who thought this was going to be a Next Generation follow-up. Building on something like Moriarty, instead of having him be a one-off security system on a stupid station, Moriarty would have been a very Next Generation thing. But, of course, they didn't want that. And then a bunch of member berries as Data's fighting Lore in some sort of astral world, and Lore's chucking his stuff over his shoulders. I mean, as I said earlier, that rubbed me the wrong way because I was laughing that, yep, that's what Secret Hideout and Terry Matalas are doing to the Next Generation. Bam, 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 over the shoulder. If this turns out to be a Deep Space Nine Pa-Wraith situation, then this series has major problems. Well, it does anyway, but it'll have even more major problems answering for how is this exactly a Next Generation follow-up.
It's decided that Deanna is going to try to connect with Jack because he's the key to everything. And at the end of the episode, we have Deanna and Jack poised to open the red door, and that's where it ends.
Like the credits come up right when he's grabbing the door, just like a Lost episode.
I thought that was her hand, actually.
Oh, was it hers?
I'm not sure. It might have been his. I couldn't really tell. I thought it was hers, though.
But it reminded me of like how Lost used to end. with the music. I don't think the music swelled at the ending, but that sort of mystery box cliffhangy stuff to try to get you to tune in. It's like, yup, that's what they're doing. Nice.
Overall, this was a terrible episode. There were a few moments that I laughed at and enjoyed for the wrong reasons, but conversely, I was disgusted by the behavior of Starfleet officers. Shaw in particular, it's his duty to try to take back his ship. He just stood there while Vadic was executing his crew. It was just appalling to me. And then the crew crying out in the hallway. This is not how we've seen Starfleet officers behave in the past. I am disgusted by how they're being portrayed now. Just this is over-the-top melodrama, whiny baby bullshit. How does anybody like this? I don't understand. Unless they're just there for all the feels because they want to feel the drama. That's the only thing I can think of, because this was terrible.
What it reminded me of when they were having those people just standing around, it reminded me like these were children that were in a lockdown school with an active shooter because they were told to just barricade themselves in and hide type stuff. They weren't trying to take their ship back. It looks to me like they still outnumbered the boarders. I don't understand why they didn't put up a fight. I also don't understand when the bridge personnel were being moved off the bridge after Jack's bluff with his grenade. As they were being pushed into that other room, Seven came back and said, no, I'm going to stand with Jack here. I'm trying to remember if Shaw complained at that time or not. But the leader of your ship, a Starfleet captain, this is his ship. He should be like, no, I'm not leaving my bridge. This is my bridge. If this ship's going down, I'm going down with my ship on the bridge. I do not understand how this is in any way, Shaw, a representation of Starfleet at its best, a Starfleet captain. This guy he's a loser in every sense of the word. And I don't understand why people are praising this as some breakthrough character that they want to base another series on. I don't know, maybe our society now is just so full of snark and they're just happy with incompetence and seeing just massive mistakes being made left and right in the real world. Maybe that's all they know right now, and they look around and go, Shaw fits in with that. He would fit in well on the TV series The Office as some bumbling, incompetent leader. That's what Shaw is. He's a character from The Office.
I guess that's just what a lot of people like watching now. I don't. I'm glad this series is almost over because I don't know how anybody thinks this is good Star Trek. This is not. This is showing Starfleet officers to be utterly incompetent.
Well, they turn it into, I know it's not perfect. Like somehow by just saying that, it means I know there are problems, but there's no but. It's garbage. The only way that your statement of it's not perfect is accurate is if it's not perfect means this is complete garbage. That's the only way it makes sense. By throwing that out there, I know it's not perfect, but the but it's a piece of crap. I know it's not perfect, but it's a piece of crap. That's what this is. It is, and I know most people who actually look back at this in 6 months to a year are going to look back and go, man, how did I get swept up in this crap? This is garbage. It's like now, when J.J. Abrams' film came out in 2009, you and I were one of the few voices that said we didn't like this as it was on the screen right afterwards. And we had to put up with 5 years of people saying, well, I know it was pretty stupid, but it was a fun popcorn movie. Except for us, it wasn't. It was just a garbage movie. And it turns out that a lot of people are coming over to our side now. And I think the same thing's going to happen here. It may take a year, it may take several years, but people are going to realize that this is garbage. This is garbage season of season 3. Hearing the news that they're somehow renewing Secret Hideout's contract and they're pushing this Starfleet Academy idea, it's bad enough that people on this Titan ship are behaving like children in a lockdown. Can you imagine how simplistic they're going to make these students at Starfleet Academy. I don't know if we'll be able to review that when it comes out, because that's like reviewing. That's why we don't do Star Trek Prodigy on this channel, because I don't want to review a children's show. And I'm not sure I want to review Starfleet Academy, which looks like it's going to be a children's show. How this got renewed, I don't know. But I do know that at this point, Star Trek is a lost cause. I think we just all have to admit that Star Trek is gone. If you want to have some member berries, some lower deck member berries, because you have to grasp onto, it's not just the better days were behind us. People are admitting the only days are behind us. They have no imagination to see how Star Trek could be taken into the future of our current world we live in and move the franchise forward. They just want to live in this comforting retro zone. And maybe they'll have more musical scores and they'll grab a guest actor coming in from a previous series. And that's how they want Star Trek to be. Star Trek Academy, the good news is maybe we'll see Tilly teaching there. Won't that be awesome? Because, you know, she had that little stint teaching at Starfleet Academy. Maybe she'll go back to that after Discovery and we'll have a Tilly-centric show called Starfleet Academy. That will be awesome. Aren't we all excited about that? That's some great work, Secret Hideout. I hope Terry Matalas is in charge of Starfleet Academy. It's going to be so much better than the other Star Treks.
Oh my god. I forgot she was teaching at Starfleet Academy. Oh no. Well, watch what you wish for, everybody.
Well, don't worry. Michael Burnham won't be there, because if Sisko got elevated to a different existence in Deep Space Nine, Michael Burnham can't be shown to be any less. So I'm sure at the end of this next Discovery, she'll be elevated to a higher form as well. Possibly just, you know, the whole leader of the universe. Like, she will become the universe itself. The good news is I don't think Tilly will have Michael Burnham visiting to show people how to commit war crimes so that students can learn how to do it correctly. They can have Saru come in and do that. And then, of course, if the Section 31 series gets going, because now they're bringing that crap up again, maybe we can have Georgiou come in and she can teach the kids. They can have like a whole 2-semester course on how to do war crimes and atrocities, because that's Starfleet. That's exactly what Starfleet stands for. There's so many opportunities with this Section 31, Tilly, Georgiou. Maybe they can have, like, at the beginning of every class, they could sit there and look at the sky and pray to Michael Burnham because she now is the universe. There is just so many things that can be done here. And yeah, it's in a different timeline, right? Because Discovery's in the future. It doesn't matter. They'll suck Tilly through a wormhole and she'll be whatever time period they're going to set up Starfleet Academy. It doesn't matter. This is all garbage. And anybody getting excited for this, I don't know. If you admit that the other stuff is crap, but somehow you're making a distinction that this is different, this current season is different, and any future series is going to be different, I don't know how you're making that determination. I'm not trying to insult you, but I am suggesting, is it possible, just possible, your emotions, your feelings, because you've been invested with Star Trek for decades in some cases, that maybe that's blinding you? You're being manipulated into thinking that something is better than what it is? Because this series is garbage. This season is garbage. Starfleet Academy is going to be garbage. It's going to be worse than this because these people in here now behave like children. How are they going to behave in Starfleet Academy?
If it gets made, it's going to be horrible. Anyway, what did you guys think of this episode? Was there anything that we didn't talk about? Because Lord knows we could go on all day about this stuff.
I could talk about fat old Data for a long time, but I'm not going to.
Yeah. So leave your comments below. We'll be here next week to go through this with you again.
Take care.